Hi everybody, welcome to Doing Dental School. My name is Kajal Khatri. I am going to be a D2 at Marquette University School of Dentistry, and as I'm finishing up my D1 year, I thought it would be nice to kind of just answer a ton of your questions about D1 year. I know a lot of you are starting D1 year this year, which is very, very exciting. So I kind of just wanted to take some time and sit down, answer a ton of questions. I had asked for questions on Instagram a few weeks ago, actually, and so if you want to be part of next Q&A, I answer questions on my Instagram like all the time, so make sure to follow me on Instagram, and let's get right into the questions because there's a lot of them. So first question I got is, when should I start getting involved in clubs? And I think this is definitely like a personal choice, because for me, in college and in high school, I was that person that like was involved in everything. Like if I was remotely interested in something, I was involved with it and I joined that club. And I think I took a different approach when I started dental school because I wanted to take that time to actually adjust to the course load, because that is something that I was really worried about. And so I took my first semester and kind of just adjusted to my course load, kind of got the hang of doing dental school and kind of just like transitioning. And then that way I kind of knew like how much I could actually handle and put on my plate. And after that second semester, I got a little more involved, and now I kind of have the hang of things, and so I'm a little more involved. So that's kind of the approach that I took. I think you can definitely take different approaches. If you know that, you want to get involved in certain clubs, definitely join those right away. I think definitely going in with an open mind and learning about all the clubs and figuring out which ones you want to join is definitely very important. So second question I got is, how do you meet and become friends with upperclassmen? And honestly, I think it's pretty easy. As an incoming D2, I'm super excited to meet the D1s and kind of share my knowledge with them and kind of help them out. So I think they're very willing to talk to D1s, and you just got to kind of put yourself out there. I'd say if you're assisting in the clinic and you're helping a D3 or D4, just talk to them. I mean, they weren't in your shoes that long ago, and so talk to them like, what are their plans for after graduation? How are they liking clinic? And they'll in turn usually ask you about D1 year because they've gone through the stuff that you've already gone through. So they'll ask how classes are going, and definitely just get to know them. I think another way to also meet upperclassmen is through tutoring. You usually are paired up with an upperclassman or a few of them for your classes, and so that's a great way to meet them. Through clubs and organizations, that's a really good way to meet them. Also different like social events, especially during orientation week, meeting different upperclassmen through those events is a really good idea. So it's pretty easy. Just kind of put yourself out there. I know it's a little scary, but you'll usually be able to find a lot of upperclassmen that you can be friends with. Okay, so the next question I got is, what are your tips for getting out of your comfort zone and meeting people in your class? And I know personally, this was like my biggest worry going into dental school, because I had this great group of friends in undergrad, and all of a sudden I was kind of starting from scratch, and I was really worried about finding genuine people and, finding people who are going to be those lifelong friends throughout dental school and honestly like beyond too. And so I was really worried about this, and I know that I might come off on social media as being very bubbly and outgoing, but to be honest, I'm a pretty quiet person. I'm not super outgoing. Putting myself out there in those new situations is very, very difficult for me. So I found that for me to calm a lot of those anxieties, I kind of just had to remind myself that everybody there is in the same boat as me. No one is going into dental school with this group of friends, this huge group of friends that they already know, and everyone's in the same boat. Like, no one really knows each other. Everyone's trying to meet new people. And so during that first week, you can kind of talk to anybody, and not even just the first week, honestly, throughout all of dental school, you can talk to anybody because they're in the same boat as you. They're taking the same classes. They kind of know what you're going through. So especially during like orientation week, try to introduce yourself to a lot of people, get to know a lot of people. Spend time going to those social events that they have during orientation week and during that first week of school. Just keep in mind that everyone wants to get to know their classmates, and you're kind of in the same boat as them. So I think that kind of eased a lot of my anxieties and kind of helped me put myself out there a little bit more. So going along with that last question, next question is, how do you balance social life and school? And I think to answer this question, I think you just got to keep in mind that you need to prioritize, but also just know yourself and be a little bit reflective. Obviously, with prioritizing, school is always going to come first. And I think we all, especially in dental school, know that we're going to put school first. But you also have to be reflective, know yourself, and know, hey, you know what? today I need a break and I need to prioritize going and hanging out with my friends over studying for an exam I have in a week. And I need to go out and do something for myself before I put school first. And there are moments like that. It might be once a week, it might be once every 2 weeks. If you have a really light load, it might be multiple times a week. So it kind of just depends on how often that happens. But I think just being reflective and making sure you're taking time for yourself is definitely important. So just knowing yourself, knowing when you need to take a break and when you need to prioritize hanging out with your friends or maybe doing something for yourself over doing schoolwork. My next question is, what was your favorite part of D1 year? And I think my favorite part was definitely just finally being able to learn what I want to learn. I feel like until now, especially being a psych major and being a bio minor, I learned a lot about plants and I learned a lot about the human brain and how social interactions work, and that was really cool and I was very interested in it. But all this time I've wanted to learn about the oral cavity and teeth and how your mouth is connected to your whole body. And so finally I'm being able to learn all of that in school, and it's really cool. It keeps me very interested because I remember like even being in my anatomy class in undergrad, when we learned, there was like one day where we touched on the teeth and I was like, oh my God, this is my favorite class. Like, you know, this is my favorite day of this class. And I was really excited about it. And so now I have that excitement almost every day where I get to go and actually learn about the oral cavity, learn about teeth, learn about the anatomy and how it's all connected to the rest of your body. So I think that's definitely my favorite part of dental school so far. So the next question is, what was your hardest class in dental school? And I think this really varies person to person also. I think that if you ask a lot of people in my class, they probably would have said neurocranial anatomy. And although that was a really tough class, personally, I struggled a lot with histology. And I think that's just me and the way that the professor writes the questions and the way that the professor taught. It didn't really make sense to me. And so I really struggled with histology, and I really had to go out of my way to get help from my tutor and to meet with the professor and go over my exams and make sure that I really understood the course materials. So it definitely varies person to person, as I said, but personally, I think my hardest class this year has been histology. All right, the next question I got is, how did I choose my loupes? And so Marquette, I think, does a really good job. ASDA actually has a loupes fair where they have about 8 companies come in. They kind of set up in the sim lab. We're able to try on different loupes. Usually the loupes companies are also at vendor fair, which happens in the fall, early in the fall. And usually also ASDA has a loops and learn or a lunch and learn where they talk about loupes and what you should be looking for in your loupes. And so personally, when I went to loupes fair, I went to every single company's table. I tried on their loupes, even if companies that I hadn't really heard of before, because I know at least at Marquette, a lot of people go with Orthoptic or Q-Optics. And so I knew those 2 companies, but I wanted to be able to kind of just try out all of the loupes from everyone. And I definitely noticed differences. I noticed differences in the weight, how the reps interacted with you, which is very important as well. So I think there were a lot of differences that I noticed between all of them, which kind of in turn helped me choose which loupes I wanted. And so I think I'm definitely going to make a whole video on my loupes and how I chose them. And now that I've been able to actually use them for almost a semester now, I think I have a better idea of what I like and what I don't like about them. And so definitely going to make a whole video about my loupes. The next question, someone was asking what the workload is like. And I think it's important to keep in mind that I think when I was an undergrad and I was applying to dental school, I was like, all right, dental school is just going to be hard. And that's all I knew. But I think it's important to realize that the actual classes for me personally weren't more difficult than undergrad at all. Like the individual classes, they were kind of like undergrad, like on the same level. But the thing that makes it a lot harder is that you're taking like 7 or 8 or 9 of those hard science classes versus maybe in undergrad you had like 2 science courses and then 3 other classes. So it's just a lot to handle on your plate. And so I think that's really how you can approach the workload, is that it's not necessarily harder, it's just a lot more to keep track of, and it's a lot more to balance between classes. And so you have to be able to realize that, all right, you know, like even though they're all hard science classes, maybe I find this class to be a little bit easier than this class, and so I should spend a little more time with the one that's a little bit harder and kind of spend a little less time on the one that's a little easier. So kind of like how you did in undergrad, just kind of prioritizing which classes you personally need more time interacting with that material with. Okay, and then my last question that I'm going to answer in this video is, how much time did I spend in lab outside of class? And honestly, I think I spent a lot less time in lab than I thought I was going to. I think whenever I talk to dental students, they're like, oh, I was in lab until 10 p.m. or midnight. And honestly, I never did that. And, you know, I did go in really early before classes. Usually on average, I would say maybe like 2 to 3 hours outside of class in lab. But personally for me, a lot of the classes that I was taking in STEM lab, I couldn't work on the class material outside of class. All of that work had to be done during our class time. And so anytime I went in outside of class time, it was really just to practice for a practical, or it was maybe, okay, I have sim lab class at 8 a.m. and so I'm gonna come in a little early and start working on my classwork right away, things like that. So yeah, I think I spent a lot less time in lab than I thought I was going to, but I think this is definitely going to be something that I'm kind of expecting to change my D2 year, because at least for me, a lot of the classes I'm taking this upcoming semester are in sim lab, and I think I spent like 3.5 days out of a 5-day week all in the basement in the sim lab. And so I'm definitely expecting this to change D2 year. Probably going to be spending a lot more time in sim lab outside of class than I have this past year. So those are all the questions I'm going to answer today. If you guys have any more questions about D1 year, definitely just send me a DM, send me an email, whatever. I'd be happy to chat. Really excited for you guys to start D1 year. It's a very exciting time. I know it can be really nerve-wracking, but kind of just take a deep breath. Remember that everyone's in the same boat as you. All of the people in your class are experiencing those same feelings. And so just take a deep breath. You guys will be fine. And I'm really excited for you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I will see you next time. Bye.